So I hardly ever cover boxing here on this channel, but I thought I'd do because obviously, last night Jake Paul battled it out against Tommy Fury, where Jake Paul lost his first and ever competitive, boxing match. And here's my reaction to that. All I'm gonna just say is this: for the people that are basically, clowning on Jake Paul or, basically, in a way laughing at him for losing to Tommy Fury, at least Jake Paul has the guts to step in the ring, okay? And that's something not a lot of people can say, because here's the thing, man, when it comes to Jake Paul, hey, I have a level of respect and admiration for him. I do, okay? I never really had any sort of issues with Jake Paul because, if there is one thing that I can always admire about Jake Paul is that his work ethic is a big reason why he's managed to make a name for himself in the boxing world. That's right, because one of the reasons, let's be honest, despite Jake Paul losing his first and ever boxing match, I will say this, though, is that I still think he's going to be back, okay? I'm saying it right now. Jake Paul, I have a feeling he'll be back whenever, whatever his next boxing fight card is going to be about, just because Jake Paul, man, hey, when it comes to boxing, I think I can say that boxing, I think, is the most difficult sport. I think it's arguably the most difficult sports or environments to play in besides MMA, okay? Because, or also UFC as well. In other words, well, MMA and UFC and boxing, I would have to rank them up there in top 3 of the toughest sports ever, just because the amount of time it takes to prepare for a boxing fight is just absolutely just a wild, especially like if you've ever done a boxing before and you're trying to figure out, okay, what is your opponent's weakness? Where are you going to strike your opponent, with your glove, of course, so that you can figure out how to gain an advantage over your opponent. And in my honest opinion, I felt like Jake Paul should have won that fight. I'll be honest, I might sound biased for saying this, but I felt like Jake Paul should have won that fight, just because, regardless of what opinion people have of Jake Paul on social media, I'm not really one of those people that has some sort of dislike towards somebody just because a bunch of people don't like him on social media, unless of course they did something really bad. Like, unless they did something like really bad, I don't really like follow or jump on like the hate wagon, I guess you could call it, just because I can say that I always had a level of admiration and respect for Jake Paul, okay? I do, as a boxer, and yes, also, I guess as a YouTuber, because from the time Jake Paul became big on YouTube in 2017, he's really managed to, I guess you could say, kind of make a name for himself, not just in the YouTube world, but he was able to use his YouTube fame to make a name for himself, especially in the boxing world, kind of like how KSI did and all that stuff. And with Jake Paul, man, listen, with that fight, I will admit I was pulling for Jake Paul to win. Yes, I was pulling for him, but I mean, Tommy Fury, give it up to him. I mean, I can give him props here in this video, and say he was the better boxer that night. Even though I was playing for Jake Paul to win, I felt like he should have won. Tommy Fury, can't make any excuses about that. He really came to play and all that stuff. And I just feel like now with Jake Paul having his first and ever boxing loss, I feel like that's only going to motivate him, because if I'm Jake Paul, the only thing I'm doing with that is using that as a motivating factor to figure out how can I improve myself as a boxer and all that. Because listen, man, Jake Paul, he's really killed it in the boxing world. I mean, for all the people that I guess that are making fun of Jake Paul, all I'm gonna just say is this: at least he has the guts to say, hey, at least I stepped in the ring with Tommy Fury, now I'd like to see you try and step in the ring. That's what I would do if somebody came up to my face and started roasting me and or clowning on me for losing my first and ever boxing match. All I would just say is this: okay, now I'd like to see you try and step in the ring with him and compete, okay? Because at least I have the guts to step in the ring. So yeah, even though I am kind of bummed out that Jake Paul lost the fight, I still would have to say that he still really has made a name for himself in the boxing world. Well, I already said that, but hey, at least he had the guts to step in the ring with Tommy Fury, and that's what really matters at the end of the day, because I still imagine he made himself quite a big pretty penny from that fight, from just one boxing fight. Like, I think that's more than what the average NFL athlete makes in a year, let alone the average baseball athlete or the average NBA athlete as well. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, that boxing fight, it was a hell of a fight. I will say this, though, that I think that Tommy Fury just managed to find momentum at the right time possible and figure out what his opponent's weakness was, because this is what really boxing is all about. You figure out, okay, where are you going to strike your opponent? You try to figure out how to tire out your opponent so that you can start, swinging on them, and as a way to get momentum and basically just win the fight and all that. But yeah, with Jake Paul losing the fight, I will just say, man, hey, at least I can still say that I'm proud of Jake Paul. Okay, despite him losing that fight, I still think it's safe to say that you got to be proud of what Jake Paul has done. And you know, if there is one boxing mentor I wouldn't mind having, because as you guys know, when it comes to boxing, I have literally zero experience in boxing. I've never competed, nor have I ever taken boxing lessons. But if there is one boxing mentor I wouldn't mind having, you know, it would have to be Jake Paul, just because of what he did, you know, and especially if you look at his workout videos, they are absolutely insane. So yeah, Jake Paul, all I'm going to say is this: if I'm him, I would personally have nothing to be ashamed of. The only thing you can do is just learn how to handle this loss with pride. That's really what it's like, I guess, for any boxing match. It's just you really learn how to handle the loss with pride instead of making excuses and all that stuff, and just say, hey, the other guy, he was just a better fighter or boxer. So yeah, all I got to say is this: Tommy Fury, shout out to him, but Jake Paul, keep your head up, bro. Yeah, that's the video, ladies and gents. See ya.